Good afternoon and welcome to Braidholme for some Sunday rugby here in Glasgow, as the domestic season is coming to a conclusion and is going to be finished with the Inter-District Championship, and first up here is going to be the third and fourth place playoff between Glasgow in the West and Edinburgh. Both of the teams got here after suffering defeats a few weeks ago. Caledonia Reds were emphatic victors over Glasgow in the West at Canal Park. The South of Scotland were victors over Edinburgh at a packed Netherdale in Galashiels on the 9th of May. So both teams on the end of heavy defeats, but will be wanting to make sure that they stake their claim here this afternoon and snatch third place in the rejuvenated and revitalised Inter-District Championship. A lot of spectators and supporters of the Scottish Club Amateur game have made their way to Braidholme this afternoon to enjoy some entertaining rugby, the best of the best in the amateur game here in Scotland, representing their region. And Glasgow in the West have had to make a few changes to their starting lineup. So from the defeat against Caledonia Reds, they've brought in Max McFarlane and Sam Graham, and also Gavin Cruikshanks in the back division, where Angus Troop and Dario Ewing line up in the forwards for a replacement. Ewing in a reshuffled back row because of the red card to McCormick in that game at Canal Park a few weeks ago. A lot of experienced players on the bench as well. Likes of Colin Sturgeon and Ryan Fleet will be hoping to make an impact on this Glasgow and West side, which are led by Paul Cairncross and Connor Bickerstaff. Edinburgh likewise have had to make a few changes, and a couple in the back division as well, with St John Broad at scrum half and also Paul Christie coming onto the wing and replacing Lewis Wells. In the forwards, Chris Anderson and Ali Bain get a start, and also Stu Allison comes in the back row, replacing Finlay Simpson, who's suffering with an injury. And in the backs as well, Cammy Lessel's made an impact at Netherdale a few weeks ago. He still stays on the bench, but there's also going to be a first appearance this season for Macaulay Keogh if he gets off the bench too. Innes Hill, a late replacement, wearing number 23. Alongside me this afternoon is Calum Johnston, who's going to be absorbing this action and dissecting it as we progress through the 80 minutes. But you know, it's great to see so many people here for this third and fourth place playoff as we await the teams. There's a good energy about Braidholme here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be an exciting day here, I think. At Braidholme, it's two sides that definitely want to try and end the season on a high. You know, obviously they didn't have the most impressive starts to the Inter-District Championships, just losing out, but they both made really good starts to the game and then just sort of died out at the end. So it'll be interesting to see who takes the win here in the third, fourth place playoff.
It's great to see. It's certainly attracted a lot of spectators here so far. And bearing in mind, after this game, we're going to have the championship decider between the South of Scotland and Caledonia Reds, and that'll be brought to you live as well. Kick-off at 3:30, and join Bruce Miller and Calum Johnson for that. But before that gets well underway, Edinburgh are making their way onto the park, led by their captain, Rhys Davis from Curry, with the rest of the players ready to make amends from their heavy defeat at Netherdale against the South of Scotland. Bob McKillop and Mark Cairns, Ian Bertizwin and Alex Haggart will certainly have been reading on the riot act after that performance. And now Glasgow and West, Paul Cairncross and Connor Bickerstaff leading a relatively home side, you would say, onto the field. And this is going to be an interesting battle, both sides shaping up well. A lot of exciting players in the backs, but up front you believe that's perhaps where this game's going to be won and lost.
Well, definitely we saw that in the last game. You know, both the starting tries were for both teams were scored by forwards. I think definitely the impact that players like Rhys Davis for Edinburgh and Fraser Grant for Glasgow and the West made last week were early signs that there are potential there in both squads, and maybe it's just a bit more cohesion in the team and just a bit more togetherness. But hopefully now that they've got a game under the belts, then that can be a stepping stone towards getting that win.
The last rallying calls for both sides have been echoed amongst their respective huddles. Glasgow just filtering into position. And Sam Graham there on your screen, just eagerly awaiting the start of this game, the Glasgow Hawks winger. And the referee, John Sim, is about to get proceedings underway. And Jamie Looms, the Edinburgh fly half, taking his time to get the third, fourth place playoff underway, and his right-footed kick down and towards the 22 has been well gathered there. Ewan Stewart from Biggar carrying forward and just looking to set up that target and that platform for his teammates to exit this in these early exchanges. A good powerful carry there as well from Ewing, one of the replacements in the back row for Glasgow and West from their defeat against Calum. Trying to play some expansive rugby early on, playing out of danger here, Glasgow and West. There's a snipe from the breakdown from Fergus Johnston. He's been snaffled well by Edinburgh. He managed just to strangle the ball carrier there. The cavalry does arrive and tries to bring some momentum there, but good defence from Edinburgh there. Glasgow showing intent, but Edinburgh defending that well.
Well, it's interesting that last week we saw that Glasgow maybe put Calum Reds a bit more under pressure, and this one they are trying to get forward, but it's all these early mistakes that could cost them later on potentially as well.
A good solid platform, and then looking to try and get a bit of width. They're just running into a bit of trouble there. A minute gone here. Glasgow and West and Edinburgh still 0-0 in this third and fourth place playoff.
It's good from Edinburgh as well to see. The main thing that we saw last week was good support play from the Edinburgh team, and they definitely will hopefully show that today.
St John Broad loiters by the tunnel, puts the ball in, a reasonably solid scrum. Canny waits for the orders to give the ball back to Looms, and now Brett coming out of his full-back position gives the ball to Ian Sim, who takes the ball into contact and has been well marshalled there by Bickerstaff and Pinkerton, the winger and full-back for Glasgow and West. Again, width from Edinburgh coming into the game there, but just not able to find that and really test that Glasgow defence.
I was just going to say that you could definitely see just the quickness that they managed to get it from one side of the wing to the other, but the Glasgow and West defence, as you say, just getting in there really quick to close down and take them out of play.
Kane Cross finds his target. It's an unorthodox line out, but the maul is eventually formed, and Kane Cross gets himself into position to get the ball at the tail of this maul. Slightly run aground as the referee just instructing some orders to the Glasgow and West to try and use that ball, and Johnson is waiting for it to escape, and he's spotted a little gap and he's got the pocket there. He's got some support on the outside there as Bickerstaff carries forward, and Scott Bickerstaff sets up the platform for Johnson just to redistribute the ball, and now the front forwards now linking up as the ball gets to the hands of Connor Bickerstaff this time, and the floating ball across the top has just drifted forward as Sam Graham looked like he was going to scamper in for a score, but the referee just brings that back. But great awareness from the scrum half there to pick the gap, and the relentless play after that as well to keep the pressure on. Once in behind, looking to try and force the pressure on Edinburgh.
Yeah, it was just a little bit too eager there with the forward pass, but as you say, it was fantastic play there from Glasgow in the West, being able to find those gaps very early on as well, stretch that Edinburgh defence as well, and then very much similar to actually what Edinburgh did, get that wide play out, so trying to find the players on the other side of the wing was unfortunate with that pass.
If you're not familiar with the name Bickerstaff, you'll get used to it, because you're probably going to hear it a lot in this game. The Connor and Scott, number 12 and 14 for Glasgow and West, played in a recent defeat in the Scottish Cup final to Hawick, and were Premiership winners last year. Edinburgh just launch off the base, and Armstrong carries forward, linking up well with Rudy Campbell. The ball's gone through the hands of Carson, but eventually has been swept up well. They managed to evade the first couple of challenges, looked to keep the ball alive as Paul Christie looked to break free from inside his own half. Edinburgh dig the ball back. Again, look to carry forward, and it's been a bright start for both sides looking to play some rugby. Canny now gives it to Armstrong, he's got some support outside, good interlinking play, releases Sim, and Sim then is almost able to evade Pinkerton at fullback, but he's been scragged down to ground. The carry forward there, some good defensive pressure from Glasgow, and the ball's turned over. And now Johnson distributes, look to find a carrier. Angus Croup is there, waiting eagerly to get himself involved in the action. A flat pass across has been brilliantly gathered. It was a very difficult ball to gather. The gap was there. He stretched every sinew to make sure he got that ball under control as Johnston finds a bit of space in behind and takes play closer towards that Edinburgh 22. And it's certainly relentless stuff for both sides.
Absolutely. And it's very hard to see kind of like who's going to have the upper hand in these starting 5 minutes, and probably for the first half, because as I said earlier, it's probably in the second half that both teams started to drop off. They are both starting really heavily in the early stages of the game, so it'll be interesting to see who can keep that up and keep that momentum going for the entire match rather than dropping off as I said they did last week.
A line out now. Ryan Stewart of Curry, voted Player of the Year for Curry this season, overthrows at the line out. Has been gathered by Glasgow and West and carried forward by one of their captains. Into the hands of Cruikshank, who finds Bickerstaff, who just stabs it forward and wants to try and make this a foot race, but he's perhaps put a little bit too much on that as it's dribbled off the field of play.
There's that brotherly experience coming in as well. As you can see, Connor trying to find Scott. Both know exactly how each other play, and that's probably one of the good things about both sides, is that they've got a lot of players from that one club. So obviously quite a few Marboys in this Glasgow and the West team who know exactly how each other play, and it's just been unlucky there.
Yeah, that was a move straight from the backyard from the Bickerstaffs. Just not able to. A quick apology off camera as well from Scott to Connor. He gives the ball back to Edinburgh now on the 22. St John Broad, one of the replacements, one of two replacements for Edinburgh in the backs. Going to pop this ball into a scrum. It's an area that Edinburgh found very difficult against the south of Scotland on the 9th of May, but looking a little bit more content here as the ball's fed back to Canny. He sclaffs that off his boot, perhaps not getting as much distance and trajectory on it, and it's been gathered by Sam Graham. Runs into a bit of trouble. He gets slightly isolated, and Edinburgh snaffle that opportunity, win the penalty, and they'll get the chance to kick downfield. It's going to be Looms to kick this into touch and take play into the Glasgow and West half for a rare occasion. We've played about 7 minutes, and most of the rugby's been played probably between the 10 metre lines, but mostly in the Edinburgh half. And Edinburgh have not really had a lot of ball.
No, they haven't. But this was exactly last week, and then they managed to get the ball just once, and then find that gap through, and then managed to score off the back of it. And that's realistically all they kind of need in these situations, I would say.
Stewart looks to find his target. It's just on the outside of the arms. That's two lineouts not going to plan for the Curry hooker. Well, scrappy there as Carson eventually rises with the ball. Now into the hands of Bain. Bain's got some support outside, not needing it. He angles his run back in field, looking to get the legs pumping. Offloads to Broad, and Broad's trying to stretch for the line, but just not able to ground it. It's the loose ball, and the referee has awarded the score. And it's an opening score. It's Ryan Stewart who's going to rise from the heap of bodies. It was scrappy, it was loose, it was an opportunity that Edinburgh were able to, who overthrew his line out, got in a good position to scoop up the ball and go over for a try.
That's exactly what I just said. They find that opportunity just to go through, and fantastic play there as well. The support play from Edinburgh, they're absolutely fantastic, managing to find those gaps. And again, as I said at the start as well, the forwards coming into their play, and Ryan Stewart, they're getting a well-deserved try for Edinburgh.
Conversion attempt, right-footed kick, and it's successful. So Jamie Looms adds the extras here, and it's first blood to Edinburgh in similar fashion as to what they did against the South. They opened the scoring with a try from Ali McCallum, but on this occasion St John Broad just not able to get the ball down, but the loose ball was gathered by Ryan Stewart, and the Curry hooker goes over the line for the opening try here in the fourth place playoff.
Especially because in the fact that they managed to just pick up a couple of loose balls earlier, and they'll be feeling very disappointed that they didn't manage to get the one loose ball that probably mattered the most.
Davis gathers from the line out, scampers out of his 22, but you heard the referee there explaining that the ruck was formed, so it's going to be a penalty to Edinburgh, and Glasgow and West will be disappointed to run into a little bit of trouble straight from the kick-off and concede a penalty, because they'll be looking to try and hen Edinburgh back inside their own area, but they've conceded the penalty. It'll allow Looms to kick downfield again. Similar position to where the try started, but that came from a Glasgow error.
They do need to keep the discipline down, especially early on to this match. Obviously, as we saw last week, they gave away a few penalties in similar scenarios where they were just, after the tries, trying to get up, but not keeping control of the game. So, yeah, they really need to keep that discipline down, especially with 70 minutes to go.
Line out, just taking a bit of time. Ryan Stewart now looking to dry the rugby ball. Perhaps putting that down to a slippery ball for his last two line-outs. It's the target this time. It was McCallum who flapped the ball back, ends up in the hands of Looms, who weaves his way out of trouble. Broad now finds Davis, playing with 6 in his back. He was 7 last week, as Broad looks to stab it downfield. Johnston gathers. Bickerstaff has then got the ball in hand. It's been hacked downfield there by Max McFarlane, straight to the hand of Charlie Brett, who kicks downfield. It's well gathered by Pinkerton. He distributes infield as well to Cruikshank, who looks to find some space. He fends the first man but not the second. He's been scythed down just short of the halfway line. Forward look to carry, get that free arm to offload, but good defence again and good defensive pressure from Edinburgh. Perhaps just too close to the line. The referee explaining to Carson how he was offside, and it's a penalty to Glasgow and West and a chance to kick downfield and build some pressure and build some momentum in this game.
Well, it's starting to become a bit more promising from Glasgow and the West. Obviously they're trying again there from that weak kick through, trying to be a bit more creative, I'd say, in the passing.
And that's a good kick from the fly half Cruikshanks, who plays his rugby for Glasgow Hawks.
It's amazing how many good kickers there are as well in the Glasgow and the West team. Obviously they've got the likes of Chris Hyde on the bench as well, who pretty sure most people who come to this ground on a Saturday know him very well. So it's good to see that they've got all-round kickers in the team.
Well, options there for Glasgow and West. Look to try and get the ball back and just not able to hit their jumper there. A bit of miscommunication from Glasgow and the West. The jumper at the front was lifted pretty high, Crumlish, but it went over the top of him, and it culminates in a penalty to Edinburgh. We'll be able to relieve the pressure, and Glasgow and West will just be bitterly disappointed with the way that their accuracy has been so far. A bit of communication as they retreat back to the position to defend this kick, but was a very attractive area to start launching an attacking platform.
They might take from the fact that Edinburgh as well, they haven't been really good at line out so far currently, so they might be a bit happy with that they can maybe capitalise on some errors that the side's already making.
Chris Anderson just having the last few words with Ryan Stewart before this line out. Hits his target off the top to Broad. Broad finds Looms, and in midfield is Davis lurking, a big ball carrier looking to puncture holes in this Glasgow and West defence. Broad finds Looms looping round, and he stabs a little kick through. Well gathered there in the backfield by Sam Graham, who's sweeping up. Glasgow and West defend this passage of play a little bit more calmly than they have been. They carry forward and twist out of contact from Troop. Again protecting the ball as Johnston finds Cruikshank just loitering in behind the ruck as Bickerstaff looks to play his way out of trouble. It's having to be swept up by Sam Graham. Glasgow and West trying to create some width on this pitch to identify attacking holes to throw some of their very dangerous runners in the backs into it. Johnston just getting the ball into a position that will afford a box kick downfield. Looms gathers, he distributes. Some space in the backfield where Pinkerton is lurking and looking to gather. He does well to control that ball and bring it back, but scuffs his kick. From an acute angle, he's kicked it out in the full, and it's a good territorial gain again for Edinburgh.
It's very interesting to see that they are kicking it into space where they don't really have the runners currently. Definitely from Edinburgh there, like just kicking it into the hands of Pinkerton with no support play running there, so it's interesting to see that decision making. Maybe perhaps it is, as you say, just running up and hoping for the best, but
I'm finding it difficult to really make yards when they're carrying the ball. The defensive resistance from Edinburgh has been pretty impressive so far. from the line out. Look to find Campbell again, has just went over the head of then Rackey's number 8. Gathered at the back by Cairncross, who carries forward, takes Glasgow West up towards the halfway line as Crumlish now powers his way forward with the ball in hand. Cruikshank finds Bickerstaff. Bickerstaff has then got Graham on the wing. Johnson digging about again, looking to find one of the big ball carriers, and it's Troop this time. One of the replacements from the defeat against Glasgow, from Glasgow's defeat against Caledonia Reds. Ball slowing down. Davis has powered through it, but he's conceded a penalty, and that's a little bit more positive from Glasgow in the West. 7 points down, 15 minutes on the clock, and they're probably glad it's just the 7 points. There's been little attacking opportunity, but Glasgow a little bit more continuity in their play this time.
Yeah, absolutely. They are starting to click a bit more. It'll be interesting to see what their decisions are here going to the line out now. But obviously last week when they were very early on, they were just kicking for the post instead, trying to gain some advantage back into the game and get into it a bit more.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic in terms of this game. It's a third, fourth place playoff. It's it's inter-district rugby, so a lot of players from various clubs coming together to represent their regions. It's still a game of rugby to win. So these decisions that they're going to be making, come the end of the game, they could be vital in terms of who is going to win the third place or who's going to be finished bottom of the pile.
Exactly. Both sides will want to finish their season on a high. Obviously for both sides, there's quite a lot of boys who have had brilliant seasons already. You've got boys from Curry Chieftains who managed to make the finals, and Aki's had a really, really strong finish. And for Glasgow in the West as well, Mark getting to the Scottish Cup final as well. Hawks as well, who might not have the best of seasons, but get to a Scottish Cup semi-final. And even going further down the leagues, you've got boys from GHK and even from Glasgow Ackies who had fantastic national 2 seasons. So they will be wanting to finish that season on a high, and it'll be interesting to see, as you say, what the decisions are made.
Conor Bickerstaff gets the ball straight from the top of the line out. Carries in towards the Edinburgh 22, then they set up the pirouette in midfield. The maul is now formed, and Glasgow and West are trying to power their way forward, but the referee has spotted that there's a little faux pas in there, and you could see that was a well orchestrated move. It was planned, it was rehearsed, but just not going to plan at all for Glasgow and West.
Just some silly mistakes there that, as you said, can cost them in these games. It didn't look well rehearsed. It looked like one of these tactics that they take straight off the training field, but once you put it into game plan, you just don't get it right. If you just don't get it right at the time, then it's gone. You've just lost position there.
It was almost barbarian-esque there as they pirouetted in the 22 to set up that platform. Just not going to plan. Scrum again, locks horns. St John Broad rolls the ball in. No one fine well, it's going to come back on their side as Armstrong looks to find space. Sets up play on the opposite the stand side here. Glasgow pressure is coming on, it's a loose pass, and Canny's going to have to gather underneath the shadow of his own sticks. He's been well challenged and has to ground the ball. Great defensive pressure there from Max McFarlane, who just darted out the line to put Canny under a little bit of pressure.
Early mistakes there, but it's good to see, as you say, Glasgow and the West putting that pressure on, and Edinburgh don't want to get too complacent, especially at this stage of the game when it's only 7 points up.
Scrum is an area that both teams have slightly cancelled each other out on. Glasgow and West not had a lot of opportunities to pop the ball into their own scrum, so this might be a chance for them to flex their muscles.
That's exactly what I was just going to say there. Glasgow and the West haven't really had that scrimmaging opportunity yet, but they have, as you say, been very strong. The pack is incredible.
Yeah, there's a front row made up of 2 Glasgow Hawks players and a Mar player. Downer, Cairncross and Acton. They'll get the chance here to try and nudge Edinburgh over the line. Johnson rolls in. The scrum stagnates as the backs loiter in behind that pack and burst towards the right hand side as McFarlane looks to pick the hole. He's not able to power his way through. Johnson then finds Crumlish, who's on the left hand side playing against the grade now towards the uprights. And then there's a little knock on in there as well. Careless from Glasgow in the West, because that was perhaps their best opportunity so far to get over the try line.
No, that's incredibly unfortunate, because they did look like they had the advantage there, and it's just a small knock on. It's just small errors that are going the way an Angus Troop there.
Yeah, I think Angus Troop will be slightly disappointed. He looked for the little pick and go and just not able to gather the ball. But this opportunity was built off impressive defensive work from Glasgow and West, so they'll be hoping to press the reset button and go again, put Edinburgh under a bit of pressure in this really congested and tight dead ball area here at Braidholme, the home of GHA.
They can just keep that pressure on though as well, as they did in the last one, where they forced Edinburgh into making these mistakes, going under pressure and then eventually getting back into it. Then you never know, that we might see the action stay up the centre of the pitch for a wee bit longer.
The referee just signalling out exactly what he expects from the front rows. He's trying to steal a march in the dark arts of the scrum time. Scrum again. It's a put in for Edinburgh this time, and it's successful. Campbell finds Armstrong. He distributes to find Ian Sim, and he will need a second opportunity to attack from deep, and does well to keep the ball. And now Edinburgh coming forwards in waves there as Ali McCallum carries forward, breaks the first challenge, and then is gathered as St John Broad has got to sweep up the ball. And it's the chance for the opposite number 4 now to try and pick the ball up at the ruck and knock it on, because Ali Bain has just fumbled the ball and gives the ball back to Glasgow and West.
It's interesting to see from that position as well, just how deep Glasgow and West are actually sitting. So obviously from there, when they're coming in, Scott Bickerstaff is basically on the halfway line and managing to get in there. So it is interesting to see how far Edinburgh can actually get into the match.
Before we get a wee bit tired, lads, in the positions coming in, let's just work hard for each square.
Another scrum here. There's a chance here for Glasgow and West to roll the ball in. Johnston. Again, both scrums cancelling each other out. Cruikshank carries, he's got some options there, and Bickerstaff links up with Graham on the far side. He bounces his first man, but he's able to cling on for dear life and stop any momentum in that passage of play. And Charlie Brett, the Edinburgh fullback, doing well to defend, as the tip on there to Crumlish, and he picks the gap and carries forward. A snipe there from Johnston, the Glasgow and West scrum half, and he's tackled again by Brett. As the cavalry arrives for Glasgow and West, Crumlish again carrying, sets up the platform. Ball coming loose, but it's been well gathered there. The referee has eventually spotted another little error in there, and I think it's a knock-on from Edinburgh. So there's going to be a put into the scrum for Glasgow and West, who are camping Edinburgh in deep inside their own 22.
It's something that they haven't really done for most of the game, being in this area of the pitch, and they've been probably from now for, I'd say, the best part of about 5 minutes or so being camped out in Edinburgh's half. Edinburgh haven't really had a chance to get back up the pitch and score, which is very similar to what happened last week at Nitherdale, when they managed to get the first score and then just couldn't get back out the pitch.
If there's a man coming in high, tackle the ball, you need to make sure that's enough. So if they're carrying up right, let's make sure with our arms.
Good communication there from the referee John Smith in a time where the tackle height and tackles are under severe scrutiny.
It has been very impressive, the tackles so far in this game. They have been incredibly low. Obviously you're going to get these occasions where we are going to have this situation, but coming into next season with the tackle height ball trials will be in place, especially at this level. I think we might see some fantastic rugby, some fantastic attacking rugby.
We'll keep working hard and we'll have good stuff. Let's go. Time back on. Yes.
A little bit of jovial banter in the front row, which I didn't know they had a sense of humour in the front row, but obviously I'm proved wrong over the ref mic there.
They're humans too.
They're humans too. Scrum for Glasgow and West. They'll be hoping to take advantage of this position, and again the scrum is as steady as you like. Pinkerton acting as first receiver, gives it to Cruikshank out the back, who floats the ball to Bickerstaff, who dances back in field. He's challenged well by a couple of Edinburgh players, and the cavalry then comes round the corner and carries forward, and Ewan Stewart inches away from the line now. Glasgow and West try and dive over. Fergus Johnston is just swarmed by some Edinburgh shirts there. Kieran Cross acting as an auxiliary scrum half now. Glasgow and West knocking at the door, and eventually the patient play, the patient build-up results in a try. The pats on the back there were going to Andrew Acton. Whether he is the player that gets the final credit for the score, what ended up happening was it was relentless forward pressure after some good expansive play from Glasgow and West, and on the balance of play you've got to say that it's just what Glasgow and West deserve. As you can see, Acton grabbing the ball and just flopping over the line.
Absolutely, and it's something that Glasgow and the West have been good at for both games, the forward play and the forward action, and I think that's been a incredibly well deserved try. They've been knocking at Edinburgh's door now for a while, and it's just small mistakes that have been costing them, so it's fantastic to see that they managed to get some points on the board.
17 minutes since the opening try from Ryan Stewart, replied now by Andrew Acton, and now Cruikshanks to try and add the extras. The right footed kick just not connecting with that ball in the way that he perhaps envisaged it. It went to the right hand side of the post, so Edinburgh cling on to their lead here after the 26 minutes, but Glasgow and West are slowly but surely growing into this game. It's Glasgow and West 5, Edinburgh 7.
It'll be interesting to see how Edinburgh respond to that, because they had the lead obviously last week and they lost it, so it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up at least for the first half.
Looms lumps it downfield. It's been gathered by Johnson. He kicks downfield and he's absolutely clattered as well by the charge down. Doesn't get a lot of distance in the kick, but it was good pressure coming on there from Stuart Allison, the Watsonians' back row, and it means that Edinburgh have got to throw into the line out in a good position here deep inside the Glasgow and West half.
It has been good, but the lineouts themselves have not been good. They've been going too far back, so it'll be interesting to see if they change it up now, especially with the scoreline, see if they can maybe perhaps get it into the middle or even to the front.
A lot of options there in the centre of that line out.
I agree when you're back, we need to steer it all the way up. We can't have you creeping. You stay there, alright, and then on the back.
Trying to keep order at the line out. Likes of Bain, McCallum, Campbell and Davis are in the nucleus of that line out, just interchanging places, and eventually it's gathered there by McCallum. Greg Canny receives the ball from Johnson, from Broad. Davis is scythed down. Broad, the Edinburgh scrum half, gets to the breakdown and gives it to Looms. Looms has got Brett, who tries to weave his way outside the Glasgow and West defence. Again, McCallum getting round the corner, try and carry forward, but carelessly they cough up possession, and Fergus Johnson kicks downfield, and it's been gathered by Rudy Campbell. Then in the hands of Charlie Brett, who kicks downfield, not able to find open space because Graham is there, and gives it back to Cruikshanks, who just lumps it in the air. It's a difficult ball to gather. It's bounced back, and Graham is gathered, and he tips on to Crumlish, who was there in support, and carries over the halfway line. Now Glasgow and West with their tail up. They've got Acton, the try scorer for the relative home side here at Braidholme. Johnson finds Bickerstaff, who floats the ball to his brother, who dances back in field. Scott Bickerstaff just finding a shoulder, but great turnover there from Stuart Allison. The Watsonians back row got over that ball brilliantly, and when Ian Sims carried forward, he's been defended into touch by Glasgow and West, and the shackles are starting to be loosened slightly by both of these sides.
Which is what exactly you want to see. You want to see good back and forth rugby there. We saw maybe just a little bit of switching off from Edinburgh, especially when the kick came in there, but they've been a bit more on it now. That's a good line out there.
Line out quick and accurate. Bickerstaff gives it back to Cruikshank, who's got Pinkerton coming off of his full-back position. Max McFarlane to try and distribute there, but a little bit of miscommunication. It's been well tidied up by McFarlane because he's been able to keep the ball as the tip-on finds the hands of Angus Troop. Cruikshank finds Crumlish charging forward. The support loses its footing, and it means Edinburgh all over that ball, and that's all come from a bit of loose footing as St John Broad almost goes quickly, but he's going to slow it down. But a little bit more cohesion from both sides in this game now.
Absolutely, yeah. You've seen it just a bit more.
Broad now goes quickly. He finds Looms. Looms has got Campbell, and they sniff an opportunity on this stand side here at Braidholme. And the loose arm from Brett, not able to find Ian Simmons' support. The pressure coming through there from Cairncross as he swims his way through the ruck, but the referee has spotted it. That's illegal, playing the scrum half there.
Glasgow just need to start watching themselves here. I think they might get a bit frustrated, or they're starting to look a bit frustrated with their mistakes.
Looms stabs it into touch, and from the penalty, Edinburgh not enjoyed a lot of possession over the last 10-15 minutes, but they still hold on to the lead here. They still hold on to the lead, and they'll be hoping to try and build a little bit more momentum. Assistant referee Gordon Glashan just signalling the mark there for Ryan Stewart to take his position. Again, the line out is overthrown. That's about 3 line outs that have went over, and Cairncross just barges over 2 Edinburgh challenges. And Glasgow and West again benefiting off some loose play at the line out. They stretch it through Connor Bickerstaff. And Glasgow now up to halfway from a position where they're defending just outside their 22. Has been tipped on, and Anderson gathers. Ball turned over. It's Harum Scarum as Ryan Stewart does well to get the ball through his hands, and Brex finds the gap in defence, but that bounces back in field. He's got some support, finds Canny. Canny's loose pass has been gathered by Campbell. Able to gather it the second time, and now in Glasgow and West are trying to break free from inside their own 22.
This is a mess, no opportunity for advantage. First knocked on by 8.
You've got to agree with the referee.
I was just going to say, but I mean that's the main thing there that Edinburgh are looking to try and do, is they're trying to find the gaps in that Glasgow and West defence, which is obviously them sitting incredibly deep back. It's just a bit too wide, and the gaps are starting to show in the defence.
Right, okay, if you're happy, Gordon.
You can see here it got pretty fast and loose, and
the second one's forward by Black.
Graham was looking to break free. He's had a very good game, one of the replacements in the back division for Glasgow and West, Sam Graham.
And the second one's forward.
He's had an impressive performance.
Let's go, lads, let's go. Yeah.
The referee just trying to decipher what happened in that scrappy passage of play. It has culminated in an attacking scrum for Edinburgh. And St John Broad will be.
Let's not get into a big debate about it. Alright, here we go.
St John Broad will be hoping to benefit off a secure scrum yet again for the Edinburgh side.
Crouch! Bind! Set!
Again rolled in, it's craning slightly, but Broad almost gets away, but Johnston snaffles the ball, and the referee spotted a knock on in there. Pressure from the 9, but just not able to gather that loose ball.
I think the last thing here that you want to be conceding is another scrum. It's clearly, obviously, it's whoever's got the scrum is just winning it. As you said earlier, they're kind of cancelling each other out just a lot. So maybe the frustrations are starting to kick in when another scrum comes into play.
Yeah, it's almost a free ball, isn't it? Just a note that John Lascelles is on the pitch now. He's replaced Graham Carson in the Edinburgh front row. You can see what difference that's going to make to the scrum. Again, another solid scrum. Starts to twist slightly, and the referee has awarded the penalty to Glasgow and West, and they survive again in this first half. That's an impressive showing up front there from the Glasgow side in the scrum.
I think that's the first time they've managed to do that. They managed to turn over from the scrum.
There was me a minute ago saying it's a free ball.
Exactly. Which is good though. They're starting to work out Edinburgh's plays and starting to close down. Hopefully they can work this out from the line out as well, which hasn't been one of the strong points of the first half.
The line out, just on the halfway line. Glasgow and West look to find their target, manage to find Crumlish, who gives it off the top to Johnston. And Bickerstaff now linking up with Cruikshank to find Scott Bickerstaff, loitering off his wing, centre field. Again, it's an attritional battle at that ruck as the bodies pile in and try and muscle their way over. No opportunity to tip the ball on there for Acton as he has to carry forward. Johnston releases, the front row's all linking up, and now McFarlane looks to carry forward. He's been well challenged by Broad, and the offload into the hands of Cairncross has been knocked forward. Broad finds Davis, he tips on. Armstrong is able to just go over the top of Acton. Jimmy Looms has found some space, kicks downfield, but the penalty is going to go the way of Edinburgh. It was actually John Lascelles who carried forward. It was an impressive carry, but it was good interlinking play as McFarlane looked to try and break free from inside his own half, just not able to execute that offload to Cairncross. And I think Edinburgh perhaps now will just be glad that time is on their side, kick downfield, secure the ball, and hope that for the last 5 minutes or so in this game that they're able to harness another attacking opportunity.
Exactly, yeah, no. I think like they have been managing to get down the pitch a bit more now in these last 10 minutes or so, especially since the Glasgow try, but it's now just a question, obviously, from the liners that we keep saying. We've been going way far over. I think they've only managed to get one in the last about 3.
Stewart finds his target on the top. It's almost brought down. The point of contact has been shifted slightly. Stuart Allison escapes that with the ball in hand. The Edinburgh players have done well to try and get this back on their side, and they're having to fight incredibly hard to bring it back on an Edinburgh side.
The ball's still in a tackle situation and he has to come from his own side of the ball. No.
Ali Bain.
We're not talking about it just now.
Ali Bain, the player,
We've got a tackle and he has to come from his own side.
penalised at that breakdown for coming in at the wrong side. So the penalty again goes the way of Glasgow and West.
Definitely the most impressive thing so far from the Glasgow and West has been those forwards just getting stuck in, forcing Edinburgh into mistakes. Very similar to what they did last week.
It has been very attritional up front. Referee just going to have a conversation.
Roll over lots of things and we'll deal with them. The big one is really obvious, is the extra couple of knees on the floor, right? If we're tackled and we're held in the tackle, then there's no extra.
Interesting note as well that John Smith was the referee last week as well for Glasgow and the West versus Cali Reds up in Inverness, so he'll know exactly what this side are like.
Yes, he'll be well versed in their patterns of play and their areas that they try and make some additional gains. Cairncross throws at the tail, and that's been an area that's been ticking for Glasgow and West, perhaps not Edinburgh. As Bickerstaff finds a little hole, looks to break free from the challenges that are coming his way from the Edinburgh players clutching onto his shirt. The carry again from Downer, moving the point of contact. Some big challenges coming in from Edinburgh, but just not perhaps as accurate as they would hope for. Balls went loose, but the advantage is still going the way of Glasgow and West. And a couple of challenges riding up from the Edinburgh side.
Yeah, Edinburgh need to watch themselves there. Just keep calm under pressure. They don't want to give anything stupid away in the last 5 minutes of the game.
Cruikshank just opting to take the penalty from Ali McCallum. Challenged a little too high, and it's a great kick downfield. Ian Sim was just watching that sail above his head into his own 22 metre area. And Glasgow and West will be hoping to keep that continuity in their line out, hit their target.
Well, once Glasgow and the West get to this area, it's very hard for them to get out, for Edinburgh anyway, to try and turn over the ball.
Target again has been hit. Johnston finds Bickerstaff and Max McFarlane hearing out of the outside centre position at an acute angle to carry forward. And now Crumlish fumbles forward, and the play doesn't last longer than 2 phases, and it's going to be a pop into the scrum for Edinburgh. I think there's probably going to be a little break in play as well for some medical attention, but both teams will be disappointed in the last couple of minutes. We've been in retrospective 22s and just not able to capitalise on the territorial advantage.
Well, I think going back to exactly what I just said, there's the commentator's curse, that unfortunately they get the ball into Edinburgh's 22 and then just do nothing with it. They just keep forcing these mistakes in. It's unlucky for Glasgow and the West, who in the past, let's say 20 minutes, have maybe been one of the better sides.
Yeah, I've certainly grown into this game. It was an opening score for Edinburgh after 8 minutes. The hooker Ryan Stewart was able to fumble his way over the line from some loose play, and then Acton got a reply score for Glasgow and West on 25 minutes. There has been some attacking opportunities for both sides. St John Broad was one of the players who helped ignite the first score, but there's certainly been some opportunities for both sides to add to the tally that we've got so far, but just perhaps some unlikely and unfamiliar partnerships in both sides have reflected the nature of inter-district rugby, and perhaps signals the point as to why these two sides are perhaps battling it out for the 3rd, 4th place playoff.
I think both backs are still waiting to get themselves into the game. I think definitely, we've already seen from Glasgow and the West the explosive power of both Bickerstaff brothers and James Pinkerton as well, and even from Edinburgh we've seen quite a bit of creative play from the likes of Jamie Looms and, as you say, St John Broad, who I think's actually had a very fantastic game at scrum half today. So I think we are still waiting for the backs to start coming into it, but the forward play has been superb. Definitely the packs have been, in what's been quite a scrum heavy game, has been the main thing. Yeah, it's been a bit of an arm wrestle between both of these sides to get dominance up front. You feel once they get the dominance, there is plays like what Calum has just mentioned. There's players in behind who can certainly scorch the turf. I think definitely for us that watch Premiership and National League Rugby week in, week out, we know what these players are capable of, and as you say, there's just that, maybe just that partnerships that are starting to form, but as you say, it's the nature of inter-district rugby that there's only 1 or 2 games that these guys really have to get into, and hopefully in this 3rd, 4th place players can see a lot more. It's interesting and intriguing. So we lack that continuity from both sides, but the endeavour is there. As you can see from that scrum, both sides straining to get any sort of advantage as Campbell just feeds Armstrong, who's launching out of his position. Broad finds Looms. He kicks downfield and Sam Graham is backtracking to gather. Pinkerton now gathers and carries forward, finds the gap and offloads to Bickerstaff, who has to put it on the foot. He's marshalling Brett there, who rolls in contact as Broad keeps the ball alive. Ryan Stewart, the try scorer for Edinburgh, is just tackled by his bootlaces. Anderson carries forward and again well challenged by Glasgow and West. Broad finds Looms, feigns to kick and then travels with the ball and then spots some space over on that far side, but has put a little bit too much on that, so it's went out in the full. And Glasgow and West again, as we approach the final stages of this first half, look to try and go quickly and have linked up well, but the referee is going to bring that back.
There are a whole host of things that mean that can't happen, so we'll just have Roy now. It's not 5, it's been touched, it's forward. Where do you want me to stop?
There, that'll do.
I was just going to say.
The referee saving everybody on the field and not explaining every single lot to explain why that passage of play couldn't culminate in a Glasgow and West try, but it's meant that it's going to go back to the home side as Max McFarlane looks to get the ball through his hands and find Scott Bickerstaff on the wing, but it's drifted forward, and now Edinburgh look to go quick and Sim runs straight into the chest of Max McFarlane, looking to put a performance on home soil. Allison bounces off the right foot, trying to find some holes in the defence. Broad finds Looms, who finds Anderson. He tips on and Davis eventually gets the ball in hand after some good work from Ali Bain. Slightly isolated, but fights hard to give the ball to Canny, who just launches himself into the defensive line. He's fumbled the ball and now it's been distributed to Pinkerton, who stabs it forward. He's been trapped there by Ryan Stewart.
No. There's no advantage, that's a kick under pressure. Back to come.
If you're going to bring play back for a scrum there. But both sides slightly cancelling each other out in these last 10 minutes.
Absolutely, I think the backs are definitely now starting to come into play. Obviously, there we saw a nice wee kick through, but yeah, it's just seeing how long we can keep it going on for the last couple of minutes of the game.
Referee just signalling this will be the last play, the last roll of the dice for the Glasgow West. The Fergus Johnston, the GHA scrum half, formerly of Gala, is just waiting intently on the halfway line for his direction to get play back underway. Staring into a packed stand here at Braidholme in the fourth place playoff, the first of 2 games here this afternoon, as Bickerstaff gathers the bouncing ball, which is just lifted slightly off the turf as Johnson tips the ball on to Grant, but Ewan Stewart can't gather the ball cleanly, so the referee is true to his word and brings the first 40 minutes to a close, and it's a 40 minutes which Edinburgh hold a narrow advantage here. 2 points in the lead, and there's certainly a lot to play for in this second half, Calum.
It is, and I think that's been an absolutely brilliant first half of very close, very tight rugby. Both sides are just trying to get that edge in front, and it's just small mistakes and small margins which are costing them. But hopefully, come the second half, we might see a bit more free-from rugby, more back play, and hopefully we'll see a few more tries.
The Glasgow West players just trudging off into the sheds, and both teams will be able to dissect the first half, which was perhaps low in scoring but high in intrigue, as Glasgow West trail Edinburgh by 5 points to 7 at half time. And it was Edinburgh who struck first in this game. It was 8 minutes gone in the first half, and some scrappy loose play eventually. It was a great break initially from Ali Bain, and St John Broad straining for the line, and it was that man there just running onto shot, Ryan Stewart, who benefited from the loose ball to flop over for the first score.
It's good for him to see that he's still got switched on. He knows that the play has not stopped, and he's able to pick up on that loose ball as well, and fantastic support play as well from Edinburgh that we've seen all game coming into play there.
Yeah, it was a good offload from Ali Bain, a replacement in the side from the defeat against the South of Scotland. Was able to see St John Broad in support, but it took another 17 minutes before we got the next score. In Glasgow West, whose line out has been ticking, were just knocking at the door. Crumlish almost squeezing his way under the Edinburgh bodies to get the try, but ended up into the hands of Andrew Acton, who got over the whitewash for a score.
It was the good reward, I think, as well for Glasgow West, who were, as you said, they were coming, they were ticking on them, knocking on the door of Edinburgh's 22 for about a good solid 10 minutes at that point, so it was a good reward for them, and finally getting on the scoreboard as well during the game.
So both sides have left the field. They'll be having conversations as to how they can get the better of their opposite number. But at half time, it is Edinburgh who hold the narrowest of advantages. It is Glasgow and the West 5, Edinburgh 7 in the Inter-District Championship 3rd-4th place playoff.
secondary guys either a wee bit slow to roll or he's getting in the way kind of thing.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try and make sure he's out of the way. Let's just keep the standards up in terms of timing in the jackal.
Hello and welcome back for coverage of the second half here at Braidholme in the third and fourth place playoff in the Inter-District Championship for 2023, and it's a game that Edinburgh hold a narrow advantage over Glasgow and West, currently leading 7 points to 5. Stuart Allison, one of the standout performers in the first half, number 7 on his back for Edinburgh. A replacement in the starting lineup from their defeat to the south of Scotland. Will be wanting to make an impact here. We'll bring you the replacements as we start to see them appear throughout the second half here as Cruikshank gets us underway. Gathered there by Calum but fumbled, and the second half is getting started in a similar way as to what the first half ended. I'll knock on there. See that the Ben frame is on. Luke McCutcheon and David Andrew for Glasgow and West. You see Colin Sturgeon lining up at fly half as well.
It'll be interesting to see with these new subs coming on as well how the scrum's going to be affected, with that being the strong point of the first half.
Bringing the changes early. The scrum has certainly been affected, to the detriment of Glasgow and West, because they pop up in the front row, and it looked like Danny Deneen, who's a half-time replacement, Carson back on as well alongside Anderson, who made an instant impact for Edinburgh, and they win the penalty and kick downfield.
It's good to see Graham Carson back on. I know that he's had a tough season, getting injured, only second game in of the Premiership against Musselburgh. Quite a bad injury as well, but came back in the Cup a few weeks ago against Melrose, so good to see him get selected as well for the Inter-Districts, and good to see him getting his game time.
Danny Deneen, replacement for Ryan Stewart at half-time, throws into the line out off the top, and Broad tries to gather. And again, a little unforced error there from the line out.
Surprisingly not from the actual line at this time, it was from just afterwards as well.
Yeah, line out accurate this time, because before Ryan Stewart was struggling to hit his target. Got on the scoreboard with the opening try in this game, but just maybe not firing on all cylinders at the set piece. Ben frame, the GHK scrum half, a rangy scrum half as well. Rolls in. This is more solid from Glasgow and West as Bickerstaff finds Sturgeon. He distributes to Graham, who's arcing his run on the outside, and he's found a gap there. He's got some support. He offloads well, and it's Bickerstaff who's on the end of this as well, and he's tackled by St John Broad, and the ball has been fumbled forward. The try line beckoning for Glasgow and West. And it had been a lightning start to the second half from deep inside their own area. They're able to release the danger man, Scott Bickerstaff.
It's good to see that he started off the second half a lot quicker and getting the backs into it. Maybe obviously with Colin Sturgeon coming on as well, another Mar personality, that they now may be a bit more connected. They know exactly how each other plays. So it's good to see Scott Bickerstaff finally getting into his groove.
Yeah, looking to take the ball and play over to his wing where the gaps were. Linking up with the replacement fly half, Sturgeon. The nudge coming on from the scrum from Glasgow and West, looking to try and force an error from Edinburgh. It's then positioned itself stationary, and Ian Sim is tasked with carrying the ball forward. The break free now ends up in the ball is in the hands of Ian Sim. Again, powering off his wing, a really robust character with the ball in hand. Carson tips on to Ali Bain. Looms. He's got Armstrong and got Canny on the outside, and the ball has been stretched here as Christie has to sweep up. He goes back in field, and he's engulfed with Glasgow and West shirts. as the Glasgow West players have to get into a defensive groove again. Looms inside his own goal area, kicks downfield, but just not able to get a lot of distance on that. And again, good pressure from Glasgow and West, forcing Edinburgh to kick clear.
It's good to see Glasgow and West putting Jamie Looms under pressure, because we know how good he is from the boot. So maybe that was what some of the team talk was how they can just close down specific players. Obviously the likes of Rhys Davis, St John Broad as well, who have real action men, can just read the game very well.
Target is hit. The maul now formed, and in familiar fashion the hooker has just found his position at the tail of that maul. The Edinburgh players now forced to recycle themselves and repurpose themselves at the tail of the maul to stop the onslaught from Glasgow and West. It's ground to a halt. The second wave now coming through McFarlane, who knocks forward. Edinburgh pounce on the ball and then distribute. They think they've got a chance out wide as Christie links up with Sim, who's scampering out his own 22 and flops on the ball as he's dragged down to ground. Looms thinks he spots some space over the head of Max McFarlane, who's watching this with intent as it bounces, and then bounces a second time into the clutches of his hands as he's driven down to the ground by Stuart Allison. Watsonian's back row again, just perhaps putting his hand up as a parting shot to the coaches there, who maybe never selected him for the first outing. He's putting in a really good performance here for Edinburgh. Sturgeon now finds Bickerstaff, who's got to pirouette and find his brother Scott on the wing. He does well to power out the first challenge and present the ball back for Glasgow and West. Again, the heavy artillery deployed. Centre field again, but bring the finesse of the backs into play as Pinkerton links up with McFarlane, who knocks on for a second time. Carson cutting with Christie. Christie thinks he sniffs a gap on the stand side here at Braidholme, but he's been scythed down to ground. The ball's well recycled and picked up there by Angus Troop. Offload into the hands of Neil Armstrong. Scrappy at the breakdown again as Christie finds himself in the congested area. Edinburgh win the penalty and go quickly through St John Broad, rides the challenge and offloads to the captain Davis. Carrying towards that 22 metre line, Broad trying to pluck the ball from the ruck area as Looms goes quickly, but the referee is going to bring this back. The referee going to have a little chat with very apologetic from Ewing there. It'll be an interesting decision here as to see what they're going to opt to do. Oh, they tap quickly and go as Looms thinks he spots some space and feeds Dineen. Dineen has then got Brett there, who's sizing up his options, looks to release Ian Sim, who's just been chucked into touch. And you think out of the options that were available, perhaps that was the wrong one.
I was just going to say, but obviously the main thing that we've just seen there from Edinburgh is the amount of ground that they have just covered there within 2 minutes. It's probably the most ground that they've covered in a couple of phases of play for most of the game. So maybe perhaps they were a bit confident and can make those decisions, but obviously, as you say, they should maybe take the decision to extend the gap, take the points, or even aim for the line out.
Yeah, it's going to be a line out to Glasgow and West, but it almost falls back into the clutches of Edinburgh. The ball's gone loose again and been wrapped up there by the Glasgow and West, but Edinburgh guilty of infringing at the line out offside, so a little let off there because the ball was going loose. Well picked up there by Stuart Allison.
Bit of a get out of jail free card there for Glasgow. Once again from the line out, not exactly the best, but Edinburgh just getting a bit overexcited, maybe just getting into the game a bit too much there. Maybe just need to keep the cool heads. Obviously with only a 2-point gap, they'll know that they want to find some way to get the ball back and increase that score.
Bickerstaff kicks downfield and it's a lengthy effort from the Mar winger, and he's made some good ground from a penalty, which I can't remember the last time I've seen a penalty for offside at a line out by the backs, but well picked up by the match officials.
Main thing today is that the kick to touch from both sides has been incredible, I must say. Actually, that's a near enough, I'd say probably just in the 22 to the 40.
Max McFarlane going to be withdrawn from the field of play just as we await the line out, and replaced by Chris Hyde. And Glasgow West looking to empty their bench pretty early on in this fixture to gain an upper hand as Campbell's able to flap the ball back against the throw, and Broad craning his neck to see his options ahead of him. He goes for the safe one of his fly half Looms, who distributes, gets the ball wide. Edinburgh playing a relentless, fast-paced game. Ian Sim again just charged with carrying and using his physicality. Broad finds Looms and he's going to put boot to ball and try and split the field. Chris Hyde is waiting there, ready to retrieve the ball and return it duly back downfield, and he makes incredible distance with that from inside his own 22, and that's a good start for the replacement.
If there's one man that you don't want to see, I think, kicking from any distance, whether that be from the hands or from the tee, it'd be Chris Hyde. So getting it into the space there and giving it to him, you knew that was going to come.
Chris Anderson is going to be replaced by Cole Emery, and Cameron Lessels is also going to replace St John Broad at scrum half. Cameron Lessels was a replacement for the Porteous in the game against the South of Scotland at Netherdale, so he's going to make his second appearance for Edinburgh from the bench, wearing number 21. Line out by Deneen, again accurate. Lessels' first job is to distribute from the line out, and Allison is the eventual recipient of the ball, and as he powers forward, Lessels travels and links with Carson. It's a scrum half who likes to spot gaps in defences and lurking round the fringes, and he looks to go quickly again, puts the boot to ball, he goes quickly, Lessels goes forward, but the referee is going to bring that back, much to the displeasure of the Edinburgh bench, I may add.
It's good to see though from Edinburgh and from obviously Glasgow West, you've seen that they just want to get the ball going. They don't want to take any more stoppages in play and kill the momentum. They really want to keep the game flowing, which will be much to the excitement of the audience.
Yeah, it's a healthy crowd here for a Sunday fixture to bring the curtain down on what has been an eventful season. The penalty is almost kept in there by Chris Hyde, but his feet just encroaching on that line, not able to keep that scruffy kick from Jamie Looms in the field of play. So Edinburgh now have a chance to try and extend their lead, get the first points of the second half. Deneen finds Campbell, he's brought the ball down to ground, and the Edinburgh players congest and join in the action. It splinters and grounds to a halt as replacement there. Cole Emery now carries forward. Lessels finds Looms and he spills the ball out to Armstrong. He's got some options outside him but thinks he can just barge his way over. Just been held up yet again. Defensive effort from the Glasgow West is strong so far as Deneen carries. And play slowing down slightly, but Edinburgh still have the ball in hand. McCallum carries. The penalty is going to go the way of Edinburgh.
21 lies all over the ball, so I can't reward the effort.
A good patient build up there from Edinburgh. This is going to be an interesting option. As Davis goes quickly, he taps, he goes, he just runs into traffic and powers out of the first challenge. Glasgow West try and get their hands over the ball, but the ball squirms out of the ruck there. It's been swept up there by Ali Bain. Now Lessels finds Looms. Looms distributes a little bit wider as it's stripped out of contact, and eventually it's grounded down by Ian Sim, but I think the referee is going to be having a little chat with the AR on the far side, Gordon Glashan. I'm just asking for the players to depart.
I have the ball stripped back by the black player and then touched down by Lewis. Do you have any difference?
Some attention required to one of the Edinburgh players. I think the referee perhaps has made his decision. Yet to signal.
If the tackle is that fast, unfortunately the tackle has to be quicker. Alright? So, you lay on the wall, he's gone over the top. We'll not argue about it. I'm just going to tell you what.
There's a Glasgow West player on the ground. It says Scott Bickerstaff. And I think when he rises, he's perhaps going to be told that.
So it's back by black and then touchdown by blue, try shots.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be told that it's a try for Ian Sims. So the Edinburgh winger gets the first try of the second half, and it means Edinburgh extend their lead on the 53-minute mark, and this is how it culminated in a try in the corner.
Well, it's just a bit sloppy there from Glasgow West that they've just managed to let the ball go loose, and I think Ian Sims had a very good game, so I think that's very well deserved for him. But just Edinburgh starting off the second half very much how they started off the first, just coming out the blocks much faster, and I'd be interested to see how Glasgow and the West respond to that.
A conversion attempt out wide from Jamie Looms. Again, low trajectory towards the posts, and the assistant referees depart the scene pretty quickly, not raising their flags, so it's not a full 7 points for Edinburgh District, but it means that they extend their lead 12 points to 5, and it was from this score that squirmed out of the ruck, and Ian Sim capitalised on that as Mark Ashdown and Ryan Fleet entered the field of play. Replacements from the bench, and Macaulay Keogh as well is on for Edinburgh. The restart lumped high into the sky, but well gathered by Davis on his 22-metre line. The captain for Edinburgh District leading from the front as Carson carries forward. Lessels just manipulates the ball into a position that favours a left-footed stab downfield. Fraser Grant gathers, distributes to Hyde, and then Bickerstaff in the centre tries to kick the ball over the heads of the on-rushing Edinburgh defence, but eventually is into the hands of Pinkerton, who kicks downfield, but the referee is going to bring that back, and both sides certainly rolling the dice at times and trying to utilise different options to ask questions of various defences, but at times just cancelling each other out, and unforced errors coming in as well.
Absolutely, I think now as well Glasgow and the West are going to be missing Scott Bickerstaff. I think was just getting into the game there, so it's going to be interesting to see now what they can do, and especially what Ryan Fleet can bring to the game on that other wing, especially when his counterpartner on the other side, Ian Sim, has just managed to get to try scoring form.
Crunch! Find! Set!
Scrums combine again. Ball fed. Ben Frame does well. Finds Sturgeon, and Sturgeon has got a Fleet who's herring off his wing. Fights to get the ball back again as one of the other replacements. And McCutcheon carries. Ben Frame again travelling with the ball, looking to entice this Edinburgh defence on as Acton, the try scorer for the Glasgow and West, carries forward. Some options there as Sturgeon has got various players in front of him to utilise. Grant ducks under the arms of the on-rushing Edinburgh defence and does well to win the penalty as Glasgow and West revert to old school tactics. They'll tap and go and have made good ground. Great carry there from Troop, who's shown up well for Glasgow and West, and sniff an opportunity here to narrow the margins. Picking round the corner, the ball in a congested area now as it comes back on the side of the Glasgow and West again. They power towards the line, and the referee awards the score in the shadows of the Edinburgh posts, and it looks like Andrew Acton perhaps has got another score. Again, the player getting the plaudits, and we'll be able to see here who was the player that eventually they got over the whitewash.
It's hard to tell. I think it's either Andrew Acton, though. I think
it certainly looked like Acton. He was the player getting the pats on the back. I've been wrong before though. But the conversion is successful as well. So it means that we're all square now. There's the conversion attempt from Colin Sturgeon. It ties the game here, and you can see here Acton with number 3 on his back has picked up the ball, and he's escorted towards the line from a couple of his teammates, and gets a couple of pats on the back and any body part that was visible under that pile of bodies.
Well, it's definitely taken them a lot quicker now to get back into the game. Obviously, the last time we were looking at about 13 minutes, or maybe more actually, to get back into it. Whereas now they've just immediately gone up, and within 4 minutes they're back into it and levelled the game. Edinburgh need to really pick up the pace here and hopefully try and get some more points.
The restart has just bounced on the field of play and then went over the touchline, so it's going to be a throw into the line out for Glasgow. As Rory Campbell is now withdrawn, Gregor Nelson replacing him. Glasgow gather. And now look to play their way out of trouble and build on the momentum that they feel that they've gathered after scoring that try there. And 2 tries from the Marprop. Acton. For Edinburgh, it's Ian Sim and Ryan Stewart who have got on the score sheet. Left-footed kick downfield, and it's a loopy kick which is going to test Ian Sims, but he does well to gather. Tries to break out the challenge, but has done well to get his arms into a position where he can offload off the deck. As Stu Allison now powers through the first couple of challenges, fends, he's got some support but he might not need it. The back row forward is powering towards the line but is scythed down. He tries to offload the ball as well to Gregor Nelson, the replacement, but he's held up over the line. Great play from the back row, Stuart Allison, but defensive resistance from Glasgow West wins that battle there.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely brilliant run there from Stuart Allison. He could have maybe just got it off a bit earlier to Gregor Nelson, and then they would have been definitely through there for the try, but it's fantastic back there from Chris Hyde, good tracking back, and then just great holding up play from Glasgow in the West, being able to turn him over, get him on his back and put him down for the holding up.
Yeah, it was Luke McCutcheon that got back for the Glasgow West, doing well to get under the on-rushing Gregor Nelson, because he's certainly not an easy character to try and out-muscle.
But again, that's just going back there to what we said earlier about Edinburgh just trying to find those gaps in, being a bit more reactive, and Stuart Allison, who's definitely had a fantastic game today, has managed to be able to do that.
The final quarter of the game is now upon us, and the game is finally poised here at Braidholme. The goal line dropper out is gathered by the Edinburgh captain, Rhys Davis. He bounds towards the Glasgow West 22, but has been brought down, and Gregor Nelson now ducks out of the challenge and does well to get his body to ground. And the pods of forwards congregate just on the fringes of the breakdown to steal some hard-earned yards and link up well in the wider channels too, because it's released Canny after some good work by Carson. Lascelles digging about for the ball, and he's found Armstrong. Again, another robust character in midfield, offers plenty of options for Edinburgh, but they've been met with some stern resistance from the Glasgow side. Little ball back inside, not working for Edinburgh there because it's just drifted forward. A little bit of miscommunication there. The option was certainly there for Cameron Lascelles, but I think other players on a different wavelength pop into the scrum for Glasgow West.
It's good to see a bit more creative play. It's good to see just trying out different options rather than just running the same routines, but obviously, as you say, communication there just might be key.
The higher up the pyramid that you go in domestic rugby, and also a bit higher up into the Super Series, the more difficult it is to try and get the advantage over your opposite man. A lot of teams cancelling each other out physically and also tactically, and it can be said that this game is a good example of that.
There's two sides that are very equal as well, so we have seen fantastic play so far.
A lot of ingenuity and innovation from both sides, but perhaps the endeavour of representing their district is playing heavy on their mind, and it's certainly helping the defensive efforts for both sides, putting some big physical hits on their opposite numbers, putting their body on the line for the badge that they're representing. A reminder that this championship has been rejuvenated after a vote from the majority of the National League clubs to bring it back, led by the GHA, so there is an appetite here. This is the best of the best in the club game. There's a knock on there. It's going to result in a scrum to Edinburgh. And we approach the kind of almost the last 15 minutes of this game. We do say both teams are almost cancelling each other out, but there's areas of the game where it can certainly be won. Both teams are not being able to withstand any real possession and opportunity in the opposition 22, and both teams really need to get into those positions.
They do. I mean, once obviously they get into those positions, as we have seen, as I mentioned earlier in the past, they have been able to capitalise on a bit more. I'd say maybe getting into the 22, Glasgow and the West have been a bit more powerful, a bit more decisive in their actions, and it's just been some small margins of errors that have cost them. But once we're in the middle of the park here, it's become a completely open game.
Your responsibility to find a height where we've got stability.
Glasgow Accies prop Dominic Grimkowski has come on to replace two try scorer Andrew Acton. The Glasgow Accies front row forward, part of the team that have got promotion from National League 2 this year after winning it in dramatic fashion on the last day of the season. And penalty, it's an instant impact from the replacement front row. And Glasgow and West win the penalty.
I was going to say, you scored two tries and you might be a bit fuming that you'd come off a bit raging that you can't get your hat trick, but as you see, there's an instant impact to come on and win the scrum.
He's been deployed from the bench with that job in hand to put pressure on the Edinburgh pack up front, and he's had a good start to it. Wins a penalty, takes Glasgow and West into Edinburgh territory, and Acton himself has had a remarkable game in the loose and at the set piece as well. Two tries, just highlighting his contribution to this side. Line out successful again from Glasgow and West as Sturgeon just launches the ball back in field to Ryan Fleet. Eventually Ben Frame gathers the ball and takes play up towards the Edinburgh 22 metre line. Ashdown, Sturgeon, Bickerstaff, Pinkerton has eventually found some space there. There's an opportunity if he can stay on his feet, and that's great footwork there from Chris Hyde. He was able to stay strong in contact and keep his feet when he scampers into the goal line area for a try, and it means that Glasgow and West take the lead for the first time in this game with 65 minutes gone.
I think that's absolutely unbelievable. Fantastic football there from Chris Hyde. You can just see he's just trying to keep up, he's just trying to stay up, and there is some support play for him but not enough, but the fact he manages to get the try is superb.
Good work there from the backs to link up, and Hyde just able to steal a march on the cover in defence, and the dive over there is a moment that perhaps will last long in his memory if Glasgow and West go on to win this game.
Good for him as well to score on his home turf.
Yeah, replacement in the second half has come up with a try to nudge Glasgow and West into the lead. Sturgeon, right footed, adds the extras, and Glasgow and West now lead Edinburgh District by 19 points to 12, and perhaps in the balance of the second half it was a matter of time as to when Glasgow would snatch the lead.
Exactly, I think it would be more of a case as well of who would manage to finally snatch that lead, and it's good to see that the backs have finally come into their play from what has been pretty much a forwards game. And I think as well, I might be saying that could be the first try that Glasgow and West have scored from a backs player rather than a forwards player so far in the championship.
A nudge downfield from the restart. It's made a lengthy contribution to the gains here for Glasgow West, because it's an acute angle, but it's done well to get that well over the halfway line. There's going to be a throw into the lineup for Edinburgh, but a good clearance straight from the kickoff.
It's good to see the play just opening up a bit more. Just players now finally starting to get into the groove. Obviously, at the end of what has been a pretty long season, must be incredibly tired now by this point, but it's good to see we're finally getting some free-flowing, faster attacking rugby.
Yeah, just to confirm, Fraser Grant and Ewan Stewart were try scorers in the defeat against Caledonia Reds. So Chris Hyde's try is the first try from a back in the Glasgow West colours.
Thankfully, I got that right.
That was a great fact to drop in there. Now Edinburgh looking to reply and get their way back into this game, a game where they've led for so long, almost 50 minutes. They then relinquished the lead that they have built up, and perhaps not being able to put Glasgow West away at times where they've had opportunities is going to come back to haunt them. There's still a lot of time left to play in this game as Cole Imrie arises with the ball in his hand and tiptoes his way over the halfway line with a couple of Glasgow West shots for company. Rhys Davis tries to just barge his way through the door. Looms links up with Canny, and then Brett looks to hot step his way into Glasgow West territory. Ben Heber now on the right wing for Edinburgh, the Watsonians wing. Brett, some options, and throws the dummy. Does well to get that free arm to present that ball back and evade the jackal that was coming in from Glasgow West. Keogh powers his way into contact and travels with it as well, and carries a couple of Glasgow West players along with him. Lessels and Looms link up, and Imrie now, ball tucked firmly underneath his right arm. Edinburgh now trying with all their might to make some small marginal gains on this field, and Greg Canny's been deployed now to puncture holes in the defence. Troop, who's had an immense game for Edinburgh, now carries again. Looms launches to Keogh, who's got Brett acting as an auxiliary playmaker from the fullback position. He squeezes his way through the smallest of gaps in the Glasgow West defence, but then trips himself up as well. As John Lascelles now carries. Glasgow West do well to withstand the pressure that's coming their way from this Edinburgh side, and you can see the energy that's been zapped out of this the Glasgow West side from the defence. A few big breaths being drawn in this break of play.
It's a bit unfortunate there for Edinburgh, but Glasgow West are managing to close down quite a lot of players. I mean, some big players who in the game against the South for Edinburgh had pretty good runs. Boys like Rhys Davis, the Glasgow West are managing to close them down and not make as many runs as it normally would.
Rhys Davis just having a conversation there with Cairns, Mark Cairns of Curry, on the sideline. There's a little bit of attention is currently going the way of Fraser Grant, the Mar back row. Equally as comfortable in the second row as well, as the spectators perhaps take a slight break from this relentless action. It's been fast paced, it's been open, and the stand here is very well attended here at Braidholme as well. And just a reminder as well, following this game we've got the final of the Inter-District Championship coming up as well. Kick-off at 3:30, and Bruce Miller will be taking you through the action. And you're on double time, Calum, because you'll be joining them as well.
I am, yes.
It's the south of Scotland playing Caledonia Reds to see who's going to be the champions of the reinstated Inter-District Championship, to bring the curtain down on what has been a remarkable season in the domestic game.
Hopefully they can continue the action as much as we're seeing in this second half as well.
Ashdown finds his target in Glasgow West now. Launch Bickerstaff into action. Frame finds Sturgeon, and he's found a crossfield kick, and that is remarkable play, and it's a great tackle. The covering tackle from Ian Sim was needed, because Glasgow West were going in for a try. There's still a chance here for the home side just to stretch their lead. The carry now through Downer. Going against the grain. Barging their way closer towards this Edinburgh line. The Edinburgh players digging in. Defending their goal line with any energy that they've got left in them. A chance now coming. Sturgeon launches it to Bickerstaff. The ball's just dribbled forward, now hacked downfield. There's an opportunity for Glasgow and West to extend their lead here, but it just slips through their fingertips there. And there was a chance for Glasgow and West, but what a crossfield kick from Colin Sturgeon.
That's a fantastic vision there. You know, the experience of Colin Sturgeon, knowing exactly where to find these players, and it's just unlucky there for Glasgow and the West, especially to recover the ball back as well, and just trying to push up a bit more, just not going their way.
Probably two of my favourite things to see in rugby is a crossfield kick and then a tap tackle, and it was brilliant cover and defence from Ian Sim, who was just able to just sweep at the heels of, I think it was Ryan Fleet who had the ball in hand, and he was able just to stop any momentum and get his legs all tangled, and he hurtled towards the turf, and then Glasgow and West weren't able to capitalise.
It just shows the explosiveness that Ryan Fleet's got as well. We've seen that for Glasgow Hawks all year. He's been on the end of many a good try as well, many a try that we've seen actually come from Glasgow Hawks' own half, so it's good to see that experience combining as well, as I said, with the knowledge of Colin Sturgeon and Marr to pull that together.
Ryan Fleet, one of 7 Glasgow Hawks players in this Glasgow and West side. Scrum combines again. The nudge on from both sides, and it looks like the Glasgow and West are going to win the penalty. And we had a brilliant discussion in the first half in terms of decisions at the set piece. We'll first hear what the referee's got to say.
His spine is short and his inside shoulder is tucked in. He drops to the floor. Back we go. Short goal.
Yeah, I mean, there's prizes and pride on the line. You think this is perhaps the sensible option from Glasgow and West to go for the posts.
Absolutely, just to keep extending that lead. You know, they're starting to put Edinburgh out of it. I think we saw this last week as well with the South, that they're just getting a bit tired potentially, and Glasgow and West are coming back into the game. As you say, it's good decision making, a good game action from Glasgow and the West to take the penalty and extend the lead.
Sturgeon's going to be the player tasked with getting the additional 3 points here, which would make it an awkward scoreline to try and overturn for Edinburgh. He lumps it clear of the club rooms and is able to get the 3 points, and it's now in Glasgow and West 22, Edinburgh 12. And it was from that scrum you heard John Smith, the referee, explaining the infringement in that front row and dropping the bind.
I think they've got to be careful in those situations as well. Once someone like Colin Sturgeon, who has, you know, over 150 points this year just from kicking as well, that's the decisions that Edinburgh need to watch out.
Glasgow and West now hold all the aces to grab third place in this championship after a heavy defeat against the Caledonia Reds on the 13th of May. It was 58 points to 25. It's certainly shown they can score points, but this would be a sweet retribution for that performance as Davis carries from inside his own half. Edinburgh have to throw the kitchen sink at it now, but the loose pass has been gathered by Brett. He's been wrapped up by his opposite man Pinkerton, who does well. The penalty now going the way of Edinburgh.
Glasgow just have to watch that. They have to just keep the discipline down, especially with, you know, such a short period of time to go. Don't want to have any mistakes at the end.
The penalty kick downfield is encroached almost on the 10 metre line. And we've got 5 minutes left here in the third and fourth place playoff. Flat back again, and well gathered by Glasgow and West, conscious of the the touchline there. The assistant referee forgetting that he had a flag in his hand as well. Brian McGuff is reminded by referee John Smith that he had another hand with a flag in it, which is, I'm sure he'll welcome. Deneen throws to the front, off the top and into the hands of Cameron Lessels. Looms now, finds McCallum. He ducks down and powers his way forward to try and entice some of the Glasgow West defenders onto him. Eventually Ben Hebbers have to drive forward, but the attacking intent from Edinburgh is matched with ferocious defensive endeavour as well from Glasgow West. Cameron Lessels gets the ball away from the base and finds Looms. Looms offloads back inside, but it's been clutched well there by David Andrew, the Mar second row, and it's been returned downfield. It's went out in the full, but there's going to be a scrum down to Glasgow West, and time is definitely on their side.
See a few pats on the shoulders there from the Glasgow Archie's front row.
Yeah. Time out.
There's a slight break in play here. There's both sides just taking a little bit of time to get to the breakdown, and it's probably around about the time that we're going to start having to maybe press you in a minute for your player of the match. But we've certainly got a little bit of time left here. That's scrum is underway now. Both sides colliding together. Ball rolled in there. Ben Frame gets the ball away. Sturgeon finds, he kicks it downfield. He's trying to find some space in there behind Christie, but it's just found the ground as Brett now tries to break free from inside of his own half. Counter coming on there from the Glasgow West. Again does well, and the ball has ended up in the hands of Edinburgh again, but it's going to be a penalty to Glasgow West. Perhaps a time now, because you would think that Glasgow West are going to size up their options here, but there's been a few players who have certainly stood out, but there's one that's particularly caught your eye this afternoon,
yeah,
Calum.
I think in a game that's been quite a lot of forward play, I think Andrew Acton has been the difference maker for Glasgow West today. I think he's been incredibly powerful, not just the scrum but also going over the line really with 2 tries. So yeah, we'd have to pick Andrew Acton as the player of the match.
He's on the bench there, hiding behind Paul Cairncross, the captain. But Andrew Acton, with 2 tries this afternoon, has been awarded the player of the match in this game. And it's a last chance to put some further gloss on this scoreline. Last minute or so, but it's not went to plan from the line out. Christie has to kick downfield, and waiting there is Ryan Fleet. The rangy runner is sizing up his options, hears it towards the Edinburgh line, but offloads straight to Canny. Looms finds Charlie Brett, who just hacks it downfield. Chris Hyde is waiting there, and he sclaffs it off the pitch. I don't think he'll mind too much, because there's a lot of time left on the clock. The ball's probably better dead off the field of play than being fast and loose in it, but he's got it off the field of play, certainly.
It was interesting to see there from Edinburgh that they would rather take the kick and just get it up the park with not really a lot of support running there, rather than maybe just taking the run, pushing up and testing that Glasgow West defence.
Deneen, the throw into the line out, he goes to the tail. Davis can't gather, but Looms does well to eventually gather the ball at the base. It's in the hands of Gregor Nelson, who charges forward, just buries his shoulder into the oncoming Glasgow defence. As Armstrong now Davis tipping the ball on. Lessels, Brett stabbing it into the 22 to try and get some momentum in the Edinburgh attack. It's been back downfield, and Canny has to scamper back and gather. Looms, little show and go, and floats it over the top, and eventually the ball bounces up well there for Cole Imrie. Keogh having to act as auxiliary scrum half, and Greg Canny now just scything out of the line, does well at an acute angle just to slice his way through. The referee going to bring that back for a forward pass. So all the momentum from that passage of play has just been zapped out of the Edinburgh players. Play just brought back for a forward pass.
That might be one of Edinburgh's last key moments in the game to try and get back into it. As you say, there's just momentum. Every boys are just starting to slowly come back over the tire, just kicking in a bit more. Maybe realising the game that's it's a bit out of sight now.
Definitely. Definitely just out of sight for both of these sides. The referee just expressing that there's 2 minutes left here. There's still time if Edinburgh were to score within the next minute. They would have to quickly try and stab the conversion over, but the ball is in Glasgow and West possession, and because the scrum's got a bit messy, it means that the time is starting to drain out of the egg timer into Glasgow and West's hands, certainly, and it's looking more likely that they're going to pick up third place in the Inter-District Championship.
I think they'll be happy just to stay there and just keep the scrum going for a little bit longer. See the game out.
Scrums again. Ready to lock horns as they crash together. Again, another solid scrum. It's been a good afternoon for the set piece for both sides. Sturgeon finds some space centre field and kicks down. There's a tester for Ben Heber. He finds his fullback there, Charlie Brett, who gets his skates on, thinks he spots a gap, dances back in field, but Sam Graham is there covering. Davis burrows himself into the Glasgow and West defenders as Looms tries to gather. Canny does well to eventually get the ball under his spell, but there's a penalty there for Crumlish, who the Glasgow Hawks second row was offside, alongside his partner in the Boiler House, Angus Troop. And Edinburgh go quickly. Davis, he finds Nelson. Nelson offloads. Brett throws a dummy and scampers in towards the Glasgow and West half. Armstrong again in the thick of the action. Been dragged back and he's been scragged. Looms finds Davis. Davis has tipped the ball onto Keogh, but he has to do well to ride the challenge from Glasgow. The referee has put time off there for, I think, a head knock on the far side. As you see at the top of your screen, there's a player who's taken a bit of a clatter.
In fairness to the game, we'll have to restart.
And the referee is signalling that they're going to restart the game, even though the time is up. And perhaps we know that the end result here, but certainly player welfare first. A good officiating from John Smith. I think it looks like Charlie Brett perhaps is the player who has come off second best. And Glasgow and West are just getting a quick little huddle.
No, we definitely talked about team cohesion there, and you could see Glasgow and the West just immediately getting back into the huddle and just staying connected, really.
Yeah, perhaps starting to discuss the turnaround in this game. They were 5-7 down at half time. A half of 40 minutes of little scoring. There was a try from Ryan Stewart, and Andrew Acton then got a try for Glasgow and West. So Glasgow and West were trailing at half time, and then they've had tries from Acton and Hyde, and a penalty from Sturgeon to further extend their lead. Ian Sim replying for Edinburgh. when the game was very tight at that stage. So Charlie Brett is going to be replaced by St John Broad, which is going to mean Lessels is going to take up position on the right wing. St John Broad will go back into scrum half. A slight reshuffle for the final passages of this game. A reminder that the championship final is kicking off at 3:30 this afternoon here at Braidholme. We've got an hour or so. Scrum again working well as Ben framed as well to get his arm in, as Sturgeon then scampers back in towards safety so he can lump it off the field of play, and the referee has drawn the game to a finale, and it is Glasgow and West who finished third in the Inter-District Championship after toppling Edinburgh 22 points to 12. They are the victors, and perhaps on the balance of play you've got to say that Glasgow and West are worthy of their victory here. The home advantage perhaps helped them too, but it was a robust performance from both sides, but eventually Glasgow just able to outmuscle Edinburgh.
Yeah, I think that first half it was kind of a bit more in Edinburgh's favour obviously, but we saw very promising stuff from Glasgow and the West, especially in that 20-minute period where they managed to get that try, after a lot of knocking on Edinburgh's door, and then just coming into the second half, Glasgow and West just managing to pull away, the backs managing to finally be free, come out a lot more. So a fantastic win for them. Edinburgh will, I think, feel a bit disappointed, especially having the heavy loss last week as well. A collective of only about, I'm trying to do the maths in my head, but about 29 points in this championship. They could have had a lot more, it could have been a bit more promising, but they should be happy with how they've done, especially for an end of season performance from all their players for what has been an incredibly long season.
It's been a long season, but it's been great to finish it with such a sizable crowd here to take in the fourth place playoff, and it's been a great end. As you can see, Glasgow and West have defeated Edinburgh 22 points to 12, and it was a second half that actually started with Edinburgh extending their lead, and it was a scrappy try in the end, but it was Ian Sim who was able to get on the end of this passage of play,
which I think was very rewarding for him. He had a very solid game for Edinburgh. There's a few standout performances there for them, and he's just managing, just keeping aware and then latching on to that loose ball there. You can see, but that was probably the last part that Edinburgh really showed any signs of staying in the game.
Yeah, it was a winger's try. It was intent and aware of where things were going. Again, good carries from the likes of Calum and Bain, who played well for Edinburgh.
I think just again as well, Glasgow and the West were unlucky there to lose Scott Bickerstaff through to injury.
Yeah, that was his final impact on the game. And then a try for your player of the match, Andrew Acton, in similar fashion. He scored 2 tries, probably a combined carry of about 7 metres, but it's not the distance that counts, it's getting it down, and he's done well to ground it on 2 occasions.
Exactly, I think for the forward that matters, and it's showing that power, and especially look at how many plays he's got around and the support play he had from the rest of the pack. It's a fantastic try.
And this was the final try of the game. Good play from the backs, linking up really well, but it was the power in the end from Chris Hyde who was able just to steal a march in the opposition, just get enough distance between him and the defensive line to go in for a try, and that was the one that perhaps nailed the coffin firmly closed for Edinburgh. But good power, good pace, good balance.
Good as well from Pinkerton just to hold it off and manage to get that offload, and then great balance, great agility from Chris Hyde. Obviously for his club, for GHA, they've not had the best of seasons, so for him to be able to get the winning try for Glasgow and the West in this game and sees off the season incredibly well for him.
Teams get the final discussions as they bring their domestic season to a close. It closes in district colours, and it finishes in a 3rd and 4th place playoff here. So the Inter-District Championship, the bottom half of the table is now confirmed, because Edinburgh are finishing 4th and Glasgow and West finished 3rd after winning 22 points to 12. A reminder that in an hour or so's time we've got the championship final to determine who is going to be crowned the victors of the Inter-District Championship this season, as the South take on Caledonia Reds. So join Bruce Millett and Calum Johnston for that game, for worldwide coverage here. But Glasgow can bask in their victory here as they've defeated Edinburgh 22 points to 12. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the championship final coming up shortly.